All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for this Hot Seat podcast. And my name is Jason Wolver. I'm the directing pastor here at Crossroads. And we have...
I'm Tim Lee, your contemporary worship director.
Riley Metzger, director of student ministries.
And we have Pastor Dan DOTY.
Yeah. Whoop, 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 whoop.
Welcome, Dan.
I'm glad to be here. Very glad to be here.
Well,
Pastor, author, artist, what else?
Oh, that's about covers it.
That's a lot. That's a good...
That is a lot.
Anyway, yeah. Well, I don't know. I just try to use the talents I got, I guess.
Yeah, you've got a lot.
Yeah.
You've got a lot.
Well, not how many you have. It's how you use them. So
That's true. Say
that.
more about that. Say more about that.
Well, I don't know. I have always had kind of an artistic bent, and that's taken form both in writing, and I've written a number of different articles over the years on different religious subjects, all in very small, little-known religious publications. And anyway, and then I've always liked to. I really like black and whites as far as art is concerned, so I've kind of favored those. And when I lived in New Zealand, then I became acquainted with the Black Beauty. It's a real soft lead pencil.
Really?
Yeah, and you can really make things dark with it, and so you have a really broader range of tones in a black and white. You can't do that with like number 2 or something like that. The ordinary pencil that people.
So my art teachers lied to me that I could really make really detailed, art figures when without a really good pencil like that. Wow. Okay.
Well, and I also like how Pastor Dan just snuck in there when I lived in New Zealand.
Yeah.
I mean, that's probably a whole conversation in itself.
Another chapter. Yeah.
So the stimulus for this conversation is our beloved Pastor Dan, who has been here for 10 years.
Yep. Correct.
Yeah. So I've been here for almost 6.5, and you've been here for 10. You've been serving as our pastor of visitation here at Crossroads, and such a blessing, such an asset, such an encourager. And you are officially retiring from your retirement gig as our pastor of visitation. Yes. And so at the end of October, you're officially truly free for the first time in your adult life.
Yep. I like to look at it like 10 years ago, half of me retired, and now the other half is going to retire. So
All right. So I thought what we could do, I would love, before you disappear into retirement, to just for people to hear, because everyone loves you because you've been with people through their moments of hospitalization, birth, death, weddings, all these things. I'd love for us to hear your story. I mean, to as much as you're comfortable sharing, like, in other words, where you're from, how, if you grew up in the church, how you ended up going into ministry, and then just, where you went to seminary, where you served, how you ended up here. I mean, you could just give the overview kind of a thing.
Okay, all righty. I'll try.
We wouldn't know if you were lying, so you could just...
Okay. All right. Well, I had an extremely difficult childhood with a loving Christian mother and a violent alcoholic father. And don't want to go into that, but it took me 20 years of counseling as an adult to get to feel where I could really function like I feel that God wants me to function. But of course, God was behind it anyway, because it's all a part of process that led me to be who I am. Mm-hmm. And I think I feel for others because when I was a child, the people I remember the most are the people who felt about me. and cared for me. And it's just God takes us, whatever we are. I mean, some people are preachers, like yourself. You preach really well. I never felt like that was my strongest point as a pastor. I felt like personal work, one-on-one, especially I had a heart for young people that I knew were going through difficult situations like I went through. At any rate, I entered the ministry in one denomination, and I ended up in the third one. So it was just a very conservative, won't name it or anything like that, but just felt like it was very judgmental in the way they approached things, and ended up in a congregation or in a denomination that I really liked because of just kind of the broadness. You can be more of a liberal bent or more of a conservative bent and sit in the same pew and be friends, and you don't have to be around people who believe just like you do. Mm-hmm. And that meant a lot to me when I entered the Methodist Church and began serving a Methodist congregation. And anyway, I hope the church, through all of its struggles right now, the Methodist Church remains like that. Just a haven for everybody.
So then where did you grow up?
I grew up in Clarion, Iowa.
Clarion,
which is
Iowa.
north central Iowa. And it was a small farming community. So I like potatoes and gravy and fried chicken.
Bacon?
Pardon?
Bacon?
Bacon.
Bacon.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
So did your mother raise you in the church?
Yes. She struggled to do that. And at any rate, I guess I don't want to go into that too much.
Okay. And so then how did you know you wanted to go into the ministry?
Because of a pastor who cared about me. And anyway, it was just he had a big influence. Calvin Milan was his name. And just had a huge influence in my life in a very positive way. And then there were also some teachers as well who just felt like they know what you're going through. I think they're students and could feel it when somebody has a special need, like I did. And then, I probably was in counseling for 20 years as an adult, just to kind of get a handle on, what was going on. I have a master's degree in counseling, and I told everybody at the time I thought it would help me be a better minister, but I was really trying to figure out who I was.
Sure.
And it did. It helped an awful lot to have that kind of a background, and I think it helped me develop into what I really wanted to be as a human being, and that is to help hurting people. So
where did you get your undergraduate degree?
Okay, now I was in a denomination that did things totally different.
Yeah.
I have a 5-year bachelor's degree in theology, and then I have a master's degree in counseling.
Wow.
So at any rate, it's just a kind of a different track or a different way of...
So you have a 5-year bachelor degree.
Yes.
Wow, in theology.
Yeah.
No
yes.
wonder your prayers are so theologically rich.
I think that comes more from the feeling part.
Huh. But you drop some good theology in your prayers. I don't know if you guys have noticed that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I guess my philosophy is when you're trying to work with people, you listen for what they want and remember it, and then you pray for what they want. Huh. And that's...
So then after you got your bachelor's, and we don't need to talk about what that denomination was, but you worked in youth ministry in the beginning?
No, that came
Okay.
actually later on.
Okay. So what kind of, were you a associate or a solo pastor in the beginning?
Yes, solo pastor for 17 years.
17 years.
Yeah, in my original church. And then I went overseas to New Zealand and I served a church there. And when I came back, then I served a church in Broadway Presbyterian Church in Rock Island for 17 years and did a combination of youth work, which was kind of my main emphasis at the time. And anyway, then eventually I got, so I couldn't run with the pups like I used to. So,
You guys would do a lot of camping trips, right? On
Yes.
your
yes,
youth ministry days. We've talked a little bit about that.
yeah, canoeing in the Boundary Waters that's God's country up there. So
So what were you doing in New Zealand?
I was preaching
How long
at
were
a
you
church.
there?
I was there for 5 years.
How did that
Wow.
How did that happen? How did you end up in New
Well,
Zealand?
I just got our denominational paper, and they were looking for pastors to go to New Zealand because they were short on pastors. So I applied and ended up in New Zealand. So one of the most interesting experiences in my life,
So
just to be in a totally different culture.
did you plant a church over there, or did you
No,
pastor a
no,
church that was
it
already
was
established?
yes. I pastored a church that was already established, and we met in a movie theater.
Huh.
And the movie theater was huge, and the church wasn't that huge, so we had a small group of people in the
Oh,
middle
my
of
goodness.
a great big auditorium.
Wow. So what was that like being a pastor in New Zealand?
I'm not sure what to say about that. I mean, it's just like being a pastor here.
I was going to say,
You
people are
deal-
people everywhere, right?
Yes,
Yep.
people
Is
are
it-
people everywhere. Yes. And
So did you
just-
enjoy being there?
I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
I've always liked to do something new and different, and that was certainly different. But it was an English-speaking country, so it was easy to get adjusted there. So
So 17 years as a solo pastor, then 5 years in New Zealand, then 17 years at the Presbyterians.
yes,
Okay, what were you going to
Yes.
say?
Well, I was going to say that there's somebody that we need to mention, and that's Bev. So,
Yes. Oh,
so
yes.
where did you meet Bev, and where was that in all of this?
well, I don't know how much of the story you want to hear.
You got time.
We had.
Tell us about Bev.
Okay. Well, first of all, my first marriage, Bev and I are in a second marriage,
Yeah.
both of us. And at any rate, my first marriage ended in disaster. And I didn't want anything more to do with Christianity. I wanted to leave the church. I wanted to get out. I wanted to go in the real world, which somehow seemed like it appealed more than the hurt I was, and the fact that I did not fit very well in that kind of conservative atmosphere, very judgmental. So anyway, I tried to get away from God, and I worked hard at it. But the fact is, when you spend a lifetime dedicating your life to Christ, years and years, reading the Bible, studying the Bible, it affects who you are. And I became a Christian kind of I don't know whether you'd say by nature, but just that's who I was. And I ended up a total failure as a sinner. Anyway. And then through another very kind and loving pastor who just was perfectly willing to accept me in the broken condition that I was, and even with some rebellious tendencies. He just kind of put his arm around me and brought me into his church, and there's kind of more to that story too. When I came back from New Zealand, I applied for 60 or 70 jobs. Every one of them secular jobs, except one. And it was that pastor number one, tell you how God arranges things. I put the wrong phone number in of my resume, and nobody could get a hold of me.
On all of those?
On all of those. It was the same resume that I sent out. And this pastor was not content with not being able to get a hold of me by phone.
Wow.
He came and found me.
Wow. Wow.
And
In New
asked
Zealand?
me, no. This was after I returned.
Okay.
From New Zealand.
I was going to say, I'd like to see that resume.
Yeah, well,
You still got a copy of it?
No, anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
at any rate. So anyway, he came and found me and offered me a job, and I took it. It was mainly working with youth, and anyway, and I absolutely loved that for 17 years.
And so, is that where you met Bev? Bev, when you were working at that
No,
church?
well, yes, it was in that Presbyterian church. Bev and I met through a mutual friend, and there was a Christian singles group that I had started going to, and it was the leader of that singles group. And anyway, we met, and sparks flew, and anyway,
So 17 years as a youth pastor. That's quite a tenure as a youth pastor.
yeah, it was.
So I bet you have lots of good memories from that.
Oh, yes, I do. Those kids, I just absolutely loved those kids. And to be honest, I kind of had a tendency to, well, I don't know, to just try to care and minister to the kids who were troubled, you know, like I was when I grew up. And anyway.
And so you did that for 17 years, and then you got recruited to be a
Methodist pastor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was an interesting story. Bev was saying a little bit about that at lunch. You were at some convention.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you were talking to like a DS in Iowa?
Well, yes. In the youth ministry, when the expectations of the congregation change and you can't meet those expectations, then you need to leave. You need to go somewhere else. And they had come to the place where they didn't want an older man as a youth minister. They wanted somebody young and muscular and charismatic like Riley.
Like Riley.
Yeah, I don't know about muscular. I don't know about that one. I don't even know about charismatic.
Let's see. No.
Yeah, I don't know. You don't know.
So anyway,
Yeah.
so John Hartleroad, I ended up talking to him, and he put me to work.
And that was in 2002.
Yes.
So yeah, that's when I realized over lunch that we both started working in the conference the same year. So I came back from Texas in 2002.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, and so then you served. Where was the Methodist church that you served?
Well, it was a 3-point charge around Galesburg,
Okay.
the little towns around Galesburg.
Okay.
So,
And you did that for 9 years?
yeah, I was there for 9 years.
Same appointment?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the same appointment, and absolutely loved those people. Seems, when you grow over the years, it seems like you kind of get better at your job.
Huh.
And at any rate, I felt like I really felt at home with those people, and we accomplished some things, important things there. I still love them, and I feel like they still love me.
Aw. And that was where you met Pastor Sarah there, is that right? Was she in the area serving or something?
No, Sarah was not there yet. We knew another pastor from there, Marilyn Annell.
Oh, okay.
And at any rate, we were good friends
Okay.
with them because she grew up in the church that I was serving.
Oh my gosh.
And that's
Wow.
how we met. So
And so then 9 years later you retired from full-time ministry.
yes.
And how did you end up in Eureka?
We have a daughter there.
Okay.
And at any rate, we wanted to be near family just in case we got old. So,
Well, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's not happening anytime soon.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and so then how did you end up here on staff at Crossroads?
Well, I don't know. Well, we moved there to Eureka.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, just 8 miles away. And I had known Tom from a meeting that he held at one of the churches that I served around Galesburg. So at any rate, Tom talked to the district superintendent, and the district superintendent told him that I wouldn't mind working at something where I just did the pastoral work. And that's what he was looking for that at the time for this church. And anyway.
And you had the correct phone number on your resume at that point, so they could get hold of you.
At that point, I had the correct resume. Yes. Well, he didn't wait for a resume. He knew that I was there and came over and found me and talked to me. And I thought, I'm not sure I want to do this again. And I came and tried to mess up the interview. And lo and behold, Tom came over and told me they wanted to hire me. So anyway, glutton for punishment.
So then, in 10 years, you've been here, right? 10 years.
10 years, yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And so, and you promised Bev that when you turned 80, you'd retire.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, she has been very good to share you with us a few years longer, because every year, well, I remember for some reason you were in the hospital a couple years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
I got an autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
And it took me out for several months.
Yeah.
And at any rate.
Yeah. And so anyway, every year we're like, well, you think Dan will stick around? He's like, well, I'll give you one more year or whatever. And then for whatever reason, last year you said we didn't bring it up, and you didn't bring it up. And then this year I'm like, okay, well, yeah, this was borrowed time anyway. So
Yep.
Oh,
Anyway,
gosh.
it's just time. I mean, I'm 80 years old. Don't mind sharing what my age is, and I feel like my mind is not as sharp. I don't remember names. Always had struggled with names anyway, and anyway.
So and another thing that you like to write, and you've been working on a book for years.
Yeah, for 10 years. As soon as I retired, I started working on a book.
Wow, and it's almost ready to be able to
every
right?
Yeah, every time I think it's ready to publish, then I find something else that not that I need to change it. The story is just exactly the way I want it, the story itself, but it's the process. And while I loved writing, I'm not sure I like the process of going through the publishing process.
So maybe like condensed version of. So the day you started to write 10 years ago, and what's that journey been like? How quick was it to put down, and then maybe what were things you didn't expect about writing a book that would happen? I mean, obviously the editing process, which you said it was kind of probably tedious, but are there things that you just didn't expect would happen as you're writing a book?
Well, mainly I just couldn't make the story like I wanted it without writing and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. And it's been, I've had an editor who has helped me with the book. It's been through a content edit. It's been through a line-by-line edit. And then it's also been through a copy edit for the grammar and take care of my bad spelling. So anyway,
and where's it at now in the process?
I'm ready to send it in. to actually have it published. I'm going to have it published through Amazon
Yeah.
and have both digital copy and a soft cover book.
Yeah. And so when is that going to happen? When are those going to be available?
I wish I knew.
I know people around here will want.
I was going to say, I will
read
buy
it.
one.
Well,
Yeah.
well, 10 years. So
that's my kind of book because it's a mystery, murder mystery.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
So 10 years ago, I mean, technology was a lot different. Did you start writing like on a computer, or was
Yes.
it handwritten
Yes.
or typewriter? I mean, what are we?
10 years
Well,
ago, handwritten.
Typewriter.
Dude, 10
Come
years
on,
ago,
Tim.
they had
Every
computers.
author, I guess, has a preference of, when some people like to write music and they like to pull out a blank piece of paper and
Right.
with a pencil and
Right.
Papyrus.
Right.
So
No, I really like technology stuff. I like
That's good.
computers. I like to work with computers. I like to learn new things on a computer. So at any rate, the computer was what I started with, and
So now, it's done.
it's done. The story is done.
So are you already working on the next one?
No.
Is there going to be another one?
Well, there probably not a book. I'm not sure there's another project I have.
Yeah.
There was when I was at Broadway Church. There was a girl that I met. She was 10 years old at the time. Extremely, extremely dysfunctional family, and I'm not going to go into that part. But at any rate, she ended up in prison for 50 years is what the original sentence was. And she had nobody. So for years, I sent her a little money every month and wrote her letters. And she wrote back. So I have a collection of her letters. And I'd like to do something with them, and I'm not quite sure what I want to do with it. Number one, I don't have her permission, to do anything with it. So
Did you say she's still in prison? Or
no,
she's out?
no, she is out.
Okay.
She was 15 when she was arrested, and I can't even remember how many years, a number of years, 15, 20 years in prison. And now she's struggling I'm still in contact with her, and she is struggling to get through school. And I've always encouraged her to go to school. My philosophy in dealing with her was, well, of course, she always wanted me to get her out. My philosophy was, I can't get her out. I'm not going to try to get her out. I'm going to try and help her become the kind of person that ought to be let out of prison.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
anyway,
Wow.
Wow. Wow. So how is the church different now than when you started out in ministry?
wow.
Does it feel much different?
It doesn't feel a lot different, but the Methodist Church feels a whole lot different than the church that I started out in.
Oh, okay. Sure.
I don't like the judgmental thing, in churches.
Yeah.
Jesus accepted everybody. We accept everybody. And we love them the way they are. And let God change them if they're going to change. But I've never looked at being a Christian like it's a one-time thing. There's a number of different people throughout my life that had influences on me or that I have been a part of with somebody else's life. And rather than look at it like you're not a Christian and then you are a Christian, that there are Christians who just are not very mature, but interested, and that the different experiences we have in life just kind of bring them along the way. And most people can't be, the person who converts somebody. We help people along in the process of becoming converted. so that people develop. And it's, thank God we can be a part of that in other people's lives if we don't look at it as an all or nothing thing. Either you're in or you're out. It's just help you take another step.
So Riley's he's 6 years in as a youth minister. What's your advice to a working, young father, youth director today?
Let's see. Would I have any advice that's worth giving? I don't know whether I would or not. Love the kids and keep an eye out and an ear out for the ones who are hurting. And anyway, I tried an extremely difficult route as a youth minister because the church was a beautiful Gothic style Presbyterian church that had come to be over time in the middle of a really rundown area. So I tried to mix the church kids with
The neighborhood
the
kids,
neighborhood kids.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, it was always an iffy proposition. And anyway.
But it was probably a beautiful mess, right?
Yeah, well, yes, it was a beautiful mess. It's trying to bring them together,
Yep.
and it was like oil and water.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you mentioned youth ministry earlier. I want to kind of circle back to that. Every youth minister's got that one story that you wish you could just you could go back and redo. Like when I gave my sermon a couple months ago, and we played a game with Vaseline on carpet. You got any of those good fun stories?
Oh, heavens, I got so many memories, so many fun stories about
I like to
the
call
kids.
it my youth ministry fail. So what was your youth ministry fail on that?
What was my youth ministry fail? I suppose there's some people that would say trying to mix oil and water. It was difficult. Some parents did not like it, and anyway, it just.
Yeah, sometimes you get an idea where in your mind it's so beautifully constructed that it can't
Yes.
go wrong, but in
Yes.
real life it just doesn't go like that.
Right.
Right.
It's kind of one of those things where we know in our mind, like biblically, how it should be. Like it
Yes.
should be
Yes.
like this.
Yes.
But then
Exactly.
It doesn't play out that way.
But like it to live into God's vision of how we relate to one another, people have to give up a lot. A lot of fear, a lot of prejudice, and sometimes they just aren't willing.
They can't do it,
Yeah.
or are not ready to do it.
Yeah, they're not
and
mature.
that's part of the growth
right?
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so even if they agree, yes, we understand that it should be that way, right?
Yeah.
Kids
yeah.
are still,
Yeah.
parents are afraid, kids are cliquish,
But
Yep.
it's those things where those kids grow up, and even having the experience of the oil and the water, they realize as they get more mature what you were trying to accomplish, and that does play a big seed, buried in them.
It does, yeah. It does plant that seed, and a lot of times, sometimes that seed doesn't really blossom until years later, right?
Yeah.
So,
Hope so.
so
Yep.
Dan, can you think of if there any moments in your spiritual journey that like stand out as like moments of epiphany or moments of revelation where, boy, that was the time when I really learned this about God, or I really felt close to, are there any moments in your pastoral history that stand out?
There's one really outstanding one, and I've already shared a part of it, and that is my wanting to not be a Christian anymore, to give up the Christian faith. And that thing where I put the wrong phone number in. It's like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
And I've come to feel like when I felt that way, that anger toward God because of the breakup of my home, that God just looked down at me, and he smiled, and he patted me on the head, and he said, well, you just go ahead, Dan. Just jump into the world, just give it all you got, and see how that works for you. And it didn't work for me.
Don't even know how to write your own phone number.
No, it wasn't my phone number. That's the problem. But I didn't read it. That's a
So
different.
some other person was probably getting lots of job offers, is what you're saying.
Yes, I called the number, and they were hot. They had received call after call after call, and they had no idea who this Dan Doty character was.
Oh my God.
But they were really angry.
Did they accept any of those jobs though?
I have no
Oh
idea.
my
I don't.
gosh,
That's a classic.
funny.
That is a classic.
Anyway, but God didn't give up on me.
No.
I tried to give up on him, and he just said, "Go right ahead. Go down your own path for a while." And then he just brought me back.
He's faithful,
And that
right?
loving Presbyterian pastor was kind of the final thing that pulled me back in.
So, what would you say to someone who's in high school or college trying to make career choices and looking at possibly becoming a pastor? What would you? How would you counsel them?
Well, first of all, I mean, you can't, how do I want to say it? Kids go through, 15 different things that they want to do before they, ever really come to a choice. It's a process. Just be patient with themselves and just let it go. Try what you want to try. This and that and the other thing until you find something you feel like you fit at. And then you ask yourself, how can I do this in the name of a God who loves me and wants to lead me through my life? And you can do that with any profession.
So, yeah. So would you say that, I'm trying to think how to say this. Would you say that I'm always in awe of people who finish, because ministry, you say it's pretty hard.
Yeah, yes.
It's pretty hard, yeah.
Yes.
And people who stay in the game and finish, not cynical, not worn out, not burnout.
Well, I don't know about the worn out part.
Well, but I mean, so what is, so
Finish strong.
I know a lot of people who start as pastors, then they get burnt, they get hurt, they get tired, they're so ineffective. It just, the church turns on them. But you've been in this for 45 years full-time and then 10 part-time.
Right.
What are the secrets? I mean, what are the pieces that you had in play that others who had a genuine call might have been able to use if they'd had their head around them? How did you do it?
Well, in the first place, some
Sorry,
people...
that was a very unclear question.
It's okay. Well, some people don't fit. I mean, it's great for them to have a business and be an honest businessman and, in the pew, and other people do fit. That's part of it. The other part of it is coming to terms with who I really am. Am I something that fits that path? And I felt like after my little struggle and trying to get away from God, this is where God wants me. This does fit me, my personality. And you go with it.
Yeah, so so I get it. So you're saying you went through that time and then you fantasized of how much better life would be outside of ministry.
Yep.
And then you took some steps that direction and
God.
you realized very quickly. And then God had also sent kind of a messenger to pull you back in from a different angle. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Oh, what questions you guys have?
I don't know. We've hit a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's for sure.
We'll have to talk about the rights to the musical adaptation of your book when the time comes.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I'll talk it over with
Yeah.
you first.
Yeah. Give me first dibs on that.
Okay. All right. Okay.
So, Riley, what are your thoughts?
Dan, you are one of the most amazing and caring people I've ever met, and I know you've touched a lot of people here. And I know for Caitlin and I, we've had multiple dates over at your guys' house. You know, whether it's sharing dinner or ice cream or whatnot. And so I know you're not going to be working here anymore, but is that couch still open at your house anytime?
Sure is.
All right,
Anytime. I mean, for anybody in the church that wants to
right.
come and get Uncle Bob's. And
That's right.
And end up at our place.
You are staying in Eureka.
Pardon?
You are staying in
We are
Eureka.
staying, yes. We are staying in Eureka.
Yeah.
So
What is I guess this last question, what's the one thing you're looking forward to in retirement? Full-time retirement now.
being released from the responsibility.
The
I mean,
day-to-day
there's.
stuff.
I mean, I don't have the kind of responsibility full-time pastors like Jason have, but there's been some, and I take it very seriously what my role ought to be for this church, and I'm too old for that. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore.
But it's not that you don't love having the responsibility. It's like there's that love and passion for the responsibility, but you just it's time. Yeah.
Yeah, it's time. It is time
Yeah.
for me to
great.
step out and
That's great.
let somebody else take my place.
Yeah. Yeah.
God will fix it. I mean, things will work out.
Yeah. Well, and we'll
And
be introducing, the person, God did bring somebody named Bruce Rushing, and he'll be able to serve in your
Yep.
role, not fill your shoes. That's a whole different thing. We're not, you don't even try to do that.
Nope.
You just come in and serve.
Yeah.
We all just come in and serve in our own way, right?
And that's a God thing.
Right.
Because I wanted to retire. I knew I was going to feel guilty.
Yeah.
And God just sent Bruce in to
That's great. Yeah, I was
alleviate
able to, I was
that
able to
guilt.
use guilt to keep you on staff a few more years.
Well-
that was not like imagined. Like we really did use guilt to try to keep you on.
Well, I just want to say basically one more thing, and that is that this church has given me more than I've given you. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate that and how good that feels.
Well, you are going to be missed, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Going to be missed.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, friends, Tim, why don't you close in prayer?
Sure. Dear Heavenly Father, we would just like to pray for Pastor Dan as he moves into a new season, and just remind him every day of how much he's loved by you, by this congregation, friends and family, and just give him some time to breathe in a retirement, time to relax, to reflect, and time to listen to you to find out what is going to be new in his life and in this season. And we thank you for his blessing upon this church. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.